The difference between chipping and pitching is what I want the ball to do when it lands on the green, how I want it to react with the green, and then also what is my technique. So what am I actually doing with my body that's different determines whether I'm chipping or pitching, and then what the ball does when it lands on the green determines chipping or pitching. It really doesn't determine. I could pitch with a 7-iron or I could chip with a lob wedge. They're interchangeable. I can use these techniques with any club in the bag. So when I'm chipping, I wouldn't be using a lot of wrist set. So I'm basically just taking the most simple motion in golf. I'm not using a lot of wrist set as I'm going back and through, and I'm letting my body rotate back and through. It's a little bit like a putting stroke, but we're getting some knee action. In a putting stroke, you keep your lower body stable and you just use your upper body to make it as consistent as possible. We have to use a little bit more action when we're chipping, so our knees are gonna rotate, but you'll notice here, I'm not getting a lot of hand and wrist action in there. I'm just letting this club rotate back and through. That's what I would call a chip shot. Now here, I'm kind of at the farthest range of where you would be chipping. I'm probably about 25 yards, something like that from the pin. I have my pitching wedge here, and when I'm chipping, so when I'm doing that kind of dead armed, rotating back and through motion, the goal or the outcome that I'd like to have is to get the ball on the green as soon as possible and let the ball roll out to the pin. So here I have my pitching wedge, but I'm going to do that chipping motion, which means very little wrist set, and let the body rock back and through, get the ball on the green as quickly as possible and let it roll out to the flag. Now there you'll see I hit a nice shot there. I got about 3.5 feet or so. I landed that ball on the very front of the green, and that ball rolled all the way out to the flag. So I would consider that to be a stock chip shot. So very low spin, very little wrist set. Now I could do a pitch shot with this wedge also, which means I would get more wrist set, a little bit more speed coming through contact, and I would try to get this ball to land closer to the hole and spin. Let's try that out. Now the problem is I hit that one really well and it tried to grab, but it still keeps on rolling out. You'll notice how it rolled past the flag. It didn't grab and then bite. So when you're using your pitching wedge, the reason it's not good for those pitching, those high spin shots, is because it doesn't really have enough loft on it to get the maximum amount of spin. In order to be really consistent, I want to have some forward shaft lean, or this shaft of the club leaning forward this way quite a bit on all my short game shots. And when I do that with a pitching wedge, the ball comes out low, it knuckles, and it runs. Let's take a look at when I do that with my 60 degree to give you a good example of the contrast in those two clubs. Now, a good side note here, pros, when they're taking this 60 degree wedge, on average, when they're hitting pitch shots, are gonna be somewhere around only 44 degrees aloft. So tons of forward shaft lean. They're taking from 60, they're taking 16 degrees aloft off this club face to get it down around 44 to get that club to be very consistent through contact. I want my hands way forward, and that's gonna allow me to grab with a lot of bite on the ball. Now, if I do that with my pitching wedge that starts out with only 45 degrees or between 45 and 48 degrees aloft, now I'm down all the way around 30 degrees aloft when I hit contact, and it's gonna run. If I do that with my 60, I'm up around 44. That's gonna give me the great amount of spin, and this ball is really gonna hit the pin, or hit the green, and then stop. So there, I didn't swing hard enough. You see how that stopped right away. I actually need to be more aggressive. I got used to hitting a couple little pitch shot, or little chip shots. I need to be more aggressive with my body and land it all the way back by the flag. So now watch this one land. Almost back by the flag, and then it stopped on a dime like that. It took one hop and then just stopped right where it's at. That's what I would consider to be a pitch shot. Higher spin, more wrist action, and if you want to pitch well, you want to get those higher spinning shots, make those perform well, we're going to want to use either a 60 degree wedge or a 56, not the pitching wedge or a 9-iron.